briefly update you on some issues regarding the progress of the operation. You must have heard by now our defense forces are moving forward and closing in on Mekelle, on nearer towns. So Shire has already been unfettered already, and from the Alamada area also there are a number of cities and towns which have fallen under our defense forces. The issue that's becoming now pertinent is the humanitarian issues. For that, we've actually organized 2 groups of fact-finding missions which go and assess situations on the ground on both flanks of Tigray, which one is from the western part, the other is from the east and southern part, so that we're going to find on which ways would make it easier to supply food and medical items. The other aspect is we are also planning to convince and bring back our compatriots from Sudan, and preparations are underway here, where we are soliciting resources. We are also renovating and building warehouses so that food items and medical supplies would be adequately arranged. So plans are afoot. It might take a couple of days or about a week, so that will be completed in such a way that it can accommodate more people which might come out of the conflict areas to the areas which are now unfettered already, and then also to bring those who've crossed to the Sudan border back. The third is also to ensure a peaceful daily life for the cities and towns of both border areas and also the Tigray towns and cities, whereby we can fight petty crimes and also let people live their daily lives and to continue or resume social and economic activities. Again, the other fact you might have also already known that things are becoming more difficult, even though the government is trying its level best to find routes whereby we can create safe corridors to transport food items and medical facilities to the people of Tigray. Infrastructure are being damaged, bridges are now being broken, which might even more harder and more difficult to access the areas when we move on to Tigray. So that is somehow difficult, and if they keep on damaging some bridge, then it might be entirely difficult for it could be fixed, but until it could be fixed, people might suffer from lack of resources. We might not know how much backup resources have already been there, how much of it is now replenished. We don't have now adequate information, but we gather information as we go along on the areas which have become free from the TPLF forces. So these are the very brief updates of the progress after we just met last time and then had our second briefing. So the plank of today's briefing will be handled by Dr. Mulu, and I will leave the floor for him.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency Ambassador Redwan and also Lenny for organizing this event. Today, my task is to explain about the establishment, purpose, and functions of the interim administration, as well as the tasks so far performed by the administration. Before I proceed to the details, please allow me to give you a brief overview of the current situation in Tigray region, some even historical background on how we reach at the current situation at national level, also at regional level. As you know, The people of Tigray have a rich history and great social values and known for their non-negotiable Ethiopian identity. Historically, the people of Tigray have made significant contribution to the formation and existence of Ethiopia as a nation, as well as the formation of the state. In general, it's hard to imagine Ethiopia without the people of Tigray, the Tigray people without Ethiopia. This is the historical fact. That is a fact that explains the people of Tigray. Prior to 1991, the people of Tigray have paid great sacrifices with other Ethiopian brothers and sisters during the 17 armed struggle to ensure national equality, democracy, justice, development, equitable access, and human rights in Ethiopia. However, since the TPLF regime came to power in the Tigray regional state in 1991-92, the values of the people such as heroism, patriotism, solidarity, hospitality, respect for the rule of law, accountability, and the democratic and human rights, equality, equitable benefits, and national unity guaranteed by the Constitution are being eroded from time to time, and the people have been subjected to severe abductions and harassment over the past years. At national level, the TPLF regime has also played its part in destabilizing the political environment, undermining justice and democracy, promoting corruption, human rights violations, and the lack of good governance and equitable access while it was leading the country as a member of the EPRDF in the past years. As a result, the people's trust on the TPLF regime has been eroded from time to time, and there were frequent protests and numerous questions of the people about to bring about change in the country, as the repeated protests and numerous questions of the people could not be answered in the normal course of the TPLF regime. The demand for change reached its peak in March 2018, and the EPRDF regime went through a merger by comprising the three member organizations except TPLF and the five so-called partners to form a coalition party in 2012 under the name of Prosperity Party. However, the TPLF regime rejected the merger, though it was involved in the process. Over the past 2.5 years, the TPLF has been working to destabilize the country, committing many acts that threaten the unity of the people and the sovereignty and existence of the country. In particular, it has been training many youth and underage children in Tigray in the name of special forces and the militias to destabilize the country. And it has been working hard to create mistrust and hatred among the people of Ethiopia. It also held an illegal election in violation of the decision of the National Electoral Board on the 6th national election, which was legally extended due to COVID-19. In the end, the TPLF regime has been trying to create chaos in the country by not recognizing the federal government. It is known that the federal government has been constantly calling for peace so as not to get into conflict in the country and to respect the dignity of the people of Tigray. However, in the evening of November 3, 2020, the illegal TPLF group that ruled the Tigray region carried out a vicious and shameful attack on the heroic Northern Defense Force in the region. This act is unacceptable, it's illegal, it is inhuman. The federal government has been forced to take steps to prevent and enforce the law. The TPLF has plunged the Tigray people into a pointless conflict to satisfy the interests of a few groups in the regime. This conflict is not to bring development and peace to the people of Tigray. but to cause the people to lose their children again and fall into extreme poverty and hunger, erode their national dignity and isolate themselves from their Ethiopian brothers and sisters. The military operation that is undertaken in the region is not a war with Tigray people. Rather, it is a law enforcement measure by the federal government. Following this operation, the decision of the federal government to undertake this law enforcement operation, the House of Federation has decided to establish an interim administration in the state so as to not create administrative vacuum in the region. In brief, the mandate of the interim government includes, number one, reorganizing the governance structure of the region, because, as you know, the TPLF regime has conducted an illegal election, and this election is not recognized by the House of Federation. Therefore, there will not be a recognized regional council. Also, there will not be recognized executive organ at regional level. So the main mandate of the interim administration will be to reorganize the regional executive organ and appoint, executive bodies. And also, it will also appoint executive bodies at zonal levels. However, the Warada councils and Kabila councils continue to operate, because these are the main, organs that provide service, justice, and also conduct development activities. The next is, the other task of this interim administration will be to ensure law and order in the region. This is very important. To ensure, the implementation of all the rights and the rights of the people in the region. So ensuring law and order is one of the major tasks of the administration. The other is facilitating the conduct of the 6th national election in the region in accordance with applicable law of the National Electoral Board. As you know, the Tigray people has been hostage of this TPLF regime for many years. There has never been an election that is participatory, democratic, transparent, and trustful. So the task of this interim administration will be to create a conducive environment so as to make sure the 6th national election is conducted as per the National Electoral Board. So hopefully this will be the first time for the Tigrayan people to freely select their leaders. The other is, it will also approve the plan and budget of the region. Then it will also perform other activities provided by the federal government. These are briefly the responsibilities and tasks provided to this interim government. Based on this and responsibilities, the interim government has been working to craft a draft charter on how to operate or to implement these responsibilities and tasks successfully. So in this chart, we try to make clear, number one, in reorganizing the organizational structure of this executive organ, we have set criteria. We have to make a shift from the previous mistakes in the region. Everything will be conducted in consultation with the people. Even in appointing executive organs, in planning and other activities, all in peace and security. So we make clear that the participation of the people is very important. The other is ensuring peace, stability, and security in the region. This is also another priority area. Without peace and stability, this interim administration cannot be successful. So we'll give due priority to this area because we will work in this regard with all government institutions and other stakeholders, especially with the state of emergency task force. We'll try to ensure peace and stability. In this relation, as you know, due to this law enforcement operation, there are some citizens that are displaced. So the most important area will be the rehabilitation work. We'll conduct rehabilitation activities in cooperation with, again, with federal organizations, government organizations, and humanitarian agencies. So the humanitarian activities will be one of our tasks. The other is ensuring justice and good governance is another area. As you can imagine, the Tigrayan people has been, I think, suffered a lot due to lack of justice and lack of good governance. So this interim administration will create conducive condition to change this problem. The other is to ensure that the social services, I think, will function properly, because it's obvious that the social services are not functioning. So our task is to resume the functioning of this social service, education, health, and so forth, again, in collaboration with federal government, sector ministries, and other stakeholders. The next is, especially in this area, we'll try to create especially an opportunity, especially in widening the political space in the region, especially by involving all political parties operating in the region. Because the political space in the region has been very narrow. So we'll open up this. We'll invite all concerned political parties, groups or individuals to operate by respecting the rule of law. So this will help us to, I think, to strengthen the democratization process in the region, because lack of democracy and narrow political space has been a challenge in the region. So we'll work together with these political parties in the process. In this process also, we'll try to restore peace and stability with neighboring regions in Eritrea. There are some, mistrust and conflicts, so our task is to restore peace and stability within Tigray as well as with neighboring regions and the Eritrean government. That's also very important. In this regard, we'll also try to look into citizens that are in custody because of their political perception. So we'll form a task force and investigate the case. Any individual who is in custody, in prison, will be released if it is the cause is political. This is another agenda. Finally, we'll have more work, especially in the communication and the public relations work, because, as you know, the people of Tigray has been very close the attachment is very strong for the long for 50 or 40 years. So to separate the people from this party, we need to conduct more communication and public relations work, because the people should understand the reality, what is actually happening in the country. Because over the past 2.5 years, as you have witnessed, the change was, I think, going well. Especially the political space was very wide at national level. The democratized process already started very good, and it's a good process. But in Tigray, that's not the case. So the Tigrayan people should also, I think, get this opportunity. Finally, already to repeat, our area focus is the 6th national election, and again will facilitate for its successful implementation as per the schedule and direction of the National Electoral Board.
Dr. Mulu, when you reorganize the governance structure of the region, will TPLF as a party be allowed to be part of the interim administration, or will there be any appointees from that party? Thank you very much.
My name is Brook Abdam from the Reporter newspaper. My first question is, you're not going to be an elected government there, and how do you plan to gain the trust of the people when you start leading in that area, because you already held an election very recently, and do you think that you'll be welcomed there? That's my first question. And my second question goes to Ambassador Redwan. You mentioned about your activities regarding humanitarian activities. So with which partners are you doing that humanitarian activities, and who is assisting you in that regard? And where are you building these shelters that will host people that went to Sudan fleeing the war? Thank you.
Giulia Paravicini from Reuters. I have some questions on Dr. Tedros. I don't know if any of you might be willing or in the position to answer them. If so, let me know and I won't even ask, but if someone can, I can proceed. One would be, does Tedros have immunity from prosecution? If he does, will you revoke it? Since you have accused Dr. Tedros of criminal activities, will he be charged? Or will you issue an international arrest warrant, for example, through Interpol? And on the TPLF, a clarification, what's to date, just so we have it right in copy, the legal status of the TPLF, and will it change? And what do people who were members or are members and do not want to be prosecuted have to do? Do they have to publicly distanciate themselves from the TPLF? What is the procedure? Thank you very much.
Hi, Simon Marks with Bloomberg. You said you're sending 2 fact-finding missions to the west and southeast of the Tigray region. How long do you think these missions are going to take to actually evaluate a way through? And when could we see aid actually arriving in the Tigray region? And will the aid find a way through to parts of the region that are controlled by TPLF forces? And secondly, for these elections that the interim administration is preparing for, will the TPLF be allowed to participate in those elections? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Let me begin with the first question by Iskander. In the governance reorganization, TPLF will not be allowed to be part of the executive organ because especially the top officials, those who were in the executive organ of the regional government, because most of them are elected in the previous election, which was illegal. Not only those officials in the government organ at regional level, but also when we appoint officials for the executive organ, we have already established clear criteria. Our intention is to provide to the people quality service, efficient, and we will look for Tigrayan professionals who are professional, who are competent, and who has also the support from the people. We will conduct consultations when we select these officials. So any individual who has connection, especially with the criminal individuals, will not be allowed to participate in this executive organ. So our direction is not focus on individual or to deny one, but to appoint individuals who have the capability to provide quality service to the people, who has the integrity and the acceptance by the public. This is very important. In the next, the second question by Buruk is, I think, yes, we are not elected, but also the TPLF regime was also conducted illegal election. As you remember, the federal government, especially the National Electoral Board, postponed the election due to COVID-19. That's also the reason. And that the federal government sort of follows all the legal processes in postponing the election. So we believe that the TPLF regime itself is not legal. The election was also only by one party. It was not participatory. The TPLF regime elected itself. So because of this, many reasons, we believe that the regional election was not legal, but our task is, we are not to stay there for 4 years. Our task is very definite, to make the transition very smooth. In the first place, as I mentioned, our main task is to ensure transparent, objective, democratic, participatory, and trustful election in the region. Then after that, we'll hand over to the regional government elected by the people. This is very important. The process is very important. So it's going to be a shift from the previous election process in the region. So to get acceptance, we'll try to demonstrate that with the support of the federal government, we have to solve all those problems prevailing in the region. For example, justice, good governance, democracy, widening the political space. These are very important. Also, in terms of development activities, we'll demonstrate with the support of the federal government as the stakeholders to start or begin some development activities. It's not by simply preaching the people, but by demonstrating some changes, showing the people politically, economically, and socially. This is very important. In this regard, the federal government is committed to support the Tigray people, especially in terms of restoring peace and stability, also in other development activities. So because of this, it's not only by preaching people, but it's going to be beyond that. This interim administration will demonstrate that it is in favor of the people, and also we will address some of the many challenges of the people prevail for many years. If we do this, we expect that the people of Tigray will support us. Maybe I'm not, about Dr. Tedros, it's better to respond to address by His Excellency Ambassador Redwan. But about the legal status of the TPLF, it's in general the principle of, I think, the current government. The current government allows any political party to operate in the country, as far as it respects the rule of the law of the country. But when it comes to the TPLF regime, especially in the next election, we will follow the decision of the federal government, because the TPLF regime, especially those very few leaders of the regime, has already committed crime, attacking the National Defense Force. This is a crime. Not only that, even on the part of the Tigray people, they are forcing the people without their interest to engage in this conflict. So in many aspects, there are some legal issues that may be raised after the completion of the law enforcement operation on TPLF regime. But there could be members of TPLF that are innocent. Also the special forces, the young population, will try to conduct, will organize some awareness-raising trainings, and this can, I think, continue living peacefully. But we are not in a position to decide now on the fate of TPLF, because the Tigrayan people will decide, because this regime has committed a lot of crimes, not only at national level, at regional level. So we'll make consultations with the people, we will expose the reality with the people, and the people will decide. And I hope that the decision will be in favor of the TPLF regime. So these are, but we are not in a position because to allow or deny. There is a regulation in the law in the country on how political parties operate, especially in terms of respecting the rule of the law of the country. I think these are some of the questions. Thank you so much again.
Regards some of the questions which are been forwarded for me, which partners are actually working with the government? We've talked with ICRC with respect to providing with health, medical issues and others. We've talked with OCHA. We've talked with UN Resident Coordinator, and the Minister of Peace has also approached the UNHCR. So these are institutions which have come forward to work with the government when we're done with the planning and when we identified the actual need on the ground. We also briefed yesterday the local re-registered civic society organizations. They might also play their fair share. We're going to brief on other registered from civic societies of foreign elements, I think early next week, and then that would also add up on the number of partners which might lend right hand on facilitating humanitarian action. So these are basically the institutions which the government would wish to work with and then have actually approached, and then we're going to continue approaching and finding out the common ground as to where we can complement each other. The study, now the Gondar administration has already been delivering some support for people which have left their houses and villages, but to sustain it is, to ensure its sustainability, then it has to be buttressed with additional resources, because whatever it might have, obviously it might be meager to run for the longer period of time. So these are the pointers which are now being addressed, and then I think the study, the fact-finding mission, will take not more than a week to come up with the detailed plans. Will humanitarian support reach to areas which are now being controlled by TPLF? Yeah, basically we are planning to have two routes. One, in areas which are actually now unfettered, which are free, those areas could be handled by the government, basically, and then with support of other partners. In areas which are not free yet, or going to be free, then there has to be a safer corridor whereby UN agencies and other partners could supply humanitarian items like food and drugs. But we have to identify which route is now safer, whereby the operation is not yet intensified. And then situations might also change in days' time, because in some areas you might have a conflict on one part of the towns and cities, and then on the other time we don't know how the operation would actually move. So we have to know which areas could take us a safe corridor to supply these humanitarian items for quite adequate lengths of time. With regards to Tedros, it's not uncustomary for someone to be apprehensive of situations when such conflict occurs. What the government actually is not happy about is Tedros never tried to reach the government as to know and to get briefings about how things have been unfolded. But again, the government is aware of the Tedros activities, that he's been hustling and bustling and calling leaders and moving to a number of institutions and reaching out for many to pressurize those institutions to compel the government to sit and negotiate. But the government actually expects him to reach out and ask for explanations, and then also ask as to how he might be of use or he might be of help for the government, and also to settle issues. So the government is not happier. Government has, yes, an open misgivings, but how will that be handled will actually be then decided then. So we'll let you know when we make up, when the government makes up decisions and then come to a formal way of handling issues. We still are mulling it over. We are aware, the government is aware, and then is not happy, obviously, but how to go about it will be mulled over and then reached upon decision. Then when that decision becomes apparent and clear, so we'll communicate and move about it. With status of TPLF, we might have heard some folks are pushing to designate TPLF as a terrorist organization. That decision has not been reached yet, and it depends on how this operation would unfold. I don't think each and every TPLF member does what's going on his or her free will. There might be some who are doing who are supporting what's going on duress. Some of them, they actually willingly do it with malicious intent. So how can we categorize the entire TPLF, and how can we identify only those who mastermind maliciously and those who actually have to operate because they don't have much say. So this has to be yet decided, and it has to be examined further on, and it depends on how this operation would come to an end. If it comes to an end before it forces the government, before it involves many more casualties, before it involves an ongoing atrocities, then government might think as to how to negotiate and then spare mild elements from those of hardliners. So it depends on how things might unfold. Now, there isn't a cut and dried kind of decision as to the legal status of TPLF yet, but there are different moves, so it will be deliberated upon, and then there are institutions which are interested to decide on such issues. As of now, with the executive branch, there isn't that formal cut and dried sort of decision. So that's why we are urging the Tigray people and international community to convince the institution to let surrender some of the very hardliner, the upper echelons, and then they might have a chance to save the institution for that members can actually carry out thinking over and adjusting with the current reality. So we'll let you know when it happens because it's going to be apparent. Thank you for your questions and for your presence.